allowed us to have, but we know that healing, despite everything else, comes from you. And we know sometimes you heal, sometimes quickly, sometimes it's not, and sometimes it's a homegoing when a person is carried into your presence. But through it all, Lord, we know you're sovereign in everything that you do. We pray for these names mentioned. For some are recovering from falls or from accidents, from minor things that seem more minor than others, from major things like cancer, to critical surgeries, to those, Lord, who have wandered away. They're not serving you anymore. They're walking with the world. We know that the Bible says that's not good, that that's enmity with you if they love the world, which means they're against you and they're doing things, Lord, that displeases you. We pray that you'll use us or use the prayers of your people to bring them back where they need to be. And Lord, I pray it will be about your business. That we'll see people warm to the Lord, that we have a new burden for lost souls, Lord, because there's can't think of anything to be worse than anybody spending eternity separated from you. I pray, Lord, for the revival coming up. Pray, Lord, for the team we have coming. I pray for this service tonight and every time that we meet. We don't meet because it's just something we come to do, but that we meet for the purpose of learning and repenting and drawing closer to you, getting more excited about you. Thank you, Lord, for what you've done, for being with us today, for giving us a day that we were not promised, but seeing us through it. For we don't know what we would have been in without you today. And use the rest of this service, Lord, for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. First. 177. follow this book, you have. You might have seen his name but didn't think about all the things that he did, because this is not a book that a lot of people are just going to read. It's interesting, the fact that, as I said, it doesn't use the word God. It doesn't talk about prayer, faith. It doesn't talk about heaven or hell or any of those things. But it's the story of a young woman who God used in a very different kind of way to save her people. That's actually what it is. It's like an orphan who went to royalty, and God used in a great way to save her people, really. We're going to see here the outcome of, even though she's not in this chapter, we'll see that things are setting up for her to be put in that position to be used. Now, Haman was a hitman. He was a Hitler. He's one of the ones who, along with several other names that we'll talk about, have tried to exterminate the Jewish people. And he used the king to do it as well in this chapter. We know we met Mordecai last week. He raised Esther. And we know that he was a man, he cared about her, he loved her, he tried to keep up with her even when she went to the king. He was in on her life. We're going to see him today hold firm and not bow to Haman, because not only of religious beliefs and all, but the fact that he was not going to bow to a man who hated the Jews, who was the Jewish enemy. It goes back to King Agag. It's where it starts, back in the Old Testament. He is one of the reasons, one of the things that King Saul was supposed to do was get rid of all these, of the race of Agag, the Amorites. He was supposed to get rid of all of them, but he didn't. He kept one. He kept the king. He said, what would one hurt? And God said, get rid of all of them. Every one. He kept the king, and of course Samuel took over and destroyed him. But it caused him trouble. Because of that one, we'll see when God tells you to do something, Jesus in the New Testament, God in the Bible as well, they're always very clear on their instructions. If they tell you not to do something, that it's going to be repercussions, and then you go, because you can still do it. We still have the freedom to make our own choice, but there's always a reason why. Jesus did not say anything that he didn't mean ever. He was to the point. He was intentional in everything. If he says, don't do that, to get rid of all of these, don't leave a one, that means what it means, because it causes a lot of problems. So we're going to see here, Esther's the queen now. We found that in the last chapter. Mordecai has rescued the king. There was going to be a plot against his life into the last chapter. He overheard it, sitting at the gate. He overheard it. He told Esther. She had it stopped, and the men were caught and captured and done away with. He saved his life, and he foiled a plot that they had against him. Now, Haman is a descendant of Agag, A-G-A-G. That's his name. I was talking today. I wish they could have named people in the Old Testament Richard and James and John and all like they did the New Testament. Because some of these guys have some names on them. And they're really, really tough to say. David's about the simplest name in Samuel in the Old Testament. There's some simple ones, but these kings and these enemies had all these names here. But we see that he was a descendant of Agag, king of the Amalekites. Now, they've always war against Israel. Always. They were always a problem, much like the Philistines as well. An example of that, it's much like our flesh. What do we war against every day? 3 things: the flesh, the world, the system, and the devil. But the flesh is always with us. It's wherever we go. And when you get saved, it doesn't go away. Your soul gets converted and saved and becomes saved in the Lord, but your flesh is always there. That's the same way we war with it daily. We war with our flesh on a daily basis, just like they did with this group. Continually war against it. Saul was told to destroy every single one of them. The flesh must be destroyed daily in our lives. It must be fought against. The story's in 1 Samuel 15. If you want to turn there, look at that sometime, not right now, but on your own time. But he spared Agag. And this is where the trouble began. He is a descendant from this group, Haman. And if we don't get rid of our flesh, we'll have Agags in our own life. If you jump ahead of God, like Abraham and Sarah, you'll have Ishmaels in your life that you have to deal with if you don't do it God's way. There's always a repercussion. Every sin that is committed, I don't care what it is, there are repercussions from it. God can forgive you. He will forgive you, but the repercussions may continually stay. For example, a person goes out there and he gets drunk and he has a wreck and he gets paralyzed and he can't walk. He can come to the Lord and be forgiven, but he may not take back the way that he'll be crippled the rest of his life. You can go out and do some kind of sin and destroy your testimony. God will forgive you, but it may not ever take back that blemish in your life from then on. There's repercussions for everything that we do. Everything that we protect. Sin is not taken seriously, as I said Sunday. It's not a misdemeanor with God. It's not even a felony with God. It is a sin worthy of it's a capital crime worthy of death in the eyes of God. But thanks be to Jesus Christ, we don't have to die, and spiritually anyway, because of that. Now, he plans to exterminate the Jews in this chapter, all because of one man who didn't do what he thought he ought to do. Hitler was quoted as saying, "We have God's stamp of approval on this extermination of the Jews." See, you can do a lot of things in the name of religion. You can do something that you think is right in the name of religion. People are killed in the name of religion or some movement. But Hitler and others did not know about a promise or forgot that God made Abraham a promise that he would build a nation from Israel, that he would, centuries before, he spoke a promise that would make this impossible for anybody to remove Israel, even today. I don't care whether it's Russia, whether it's China, whether it's all of them combined, no one is going to beat Israel. They will never be removed because God made a promise to Abraham way back in Genesis 12 in the first 3 verses of that he's going to make them a nation. It's going to be greater than the sands of the sea, the stars of the sky, that he would make that nation. He was going to use him to start that. That's a promise from God. It'll never be removed, and they will win any war they are attacked by any nation because of that promise that God made. He said, "I will make you a great nation. I will bless those that bless you and curse those that curse you." Hitler was destroyed. So was everybody who's tried since or before with Israel. So let's look at the first point. Let's look at the prejudice of Haman. He gets a promotion. We had a beauty pageant in Persia last week. Now we have a promotion in Persia. Verse 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha. See those names here? I mean, I tell you the truth. The Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. He gets a promotion above everybody else. Well, let's read on. He's got the same position as probably prime minister would be, like right under the king. As high as you can go. He's above all others in the cabinet. But we see here, where it continues, and all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman. For the king had so commanded concerning him. In other words, you bow to him. He's prime minister, he's second in command. You bow to him, you show reverence to him that came from the king. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, What transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass when they spake daily to him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman. So here we go, as a man who is being worshipped. He's being treated with the utmost respect by everybody. They're bowing down to him. Don't you imagine he got a little prideful? He got a little big for his britches, as they used to say in my day. He got a little prideful. But Mordecai said, no, I'm not bowing to him. It was religious reasons, but also because he was an enemy to the Jews. His whole family tree, you might say, going back, was enemies of the Jews for centuries. And so he's not going to bow to him. So even today, I thought this was interesting. The traditional Jews today know about this name and what he did, Haman. Even today, his name is hated among the Jews of today. He's considered a Jewish enemy, and if you mention it to them today, they will curse and spit over his name to this very day. Because the traditional Jews know, and I'm not saying they all do, but the traditional Jews, the ones who are really Jewish, that stick with it, they're still Old Testament, really. They still have the Sabbath on Saturday. Those, if you mention his name, they will spit and curse on his very memory today. So we see that he's not a very well-liked man. The reason is because of the lineage of the Amalekites, hated by Jews. Samuel is the one who destroyed King Agag. He sliced him to pieces there when Saul would not. So the results was he's to have an appreciation. They're to bow down. Mordecai wouldn't. He was the only one. This put a fire in Haman. He's willing now to destroy the whole race over one man. You ever do that? You ever get so mad that everybody that person likes you don't like? Everybody, somebody hurts you and you know you don't like them, but anybody they associate with, you think they're against you too? This is what's happening here. He's willing to destroy a whole race. He gets all the Jews. He's venting his wrath here. This is the first recorded effort to rid the Jews, but there's others that tried, like example Pharaoh. Now, he didn't do the whole race, but he did the male babies, that they would be killed to control them. Nebuchadnezzar took them into captive, but he didn't try to kill the whole race. And then there was Herod on down there that did some things as well. But here it is that he bows. He didn't bow, and he sees it, and he's seethed over what's happened here. It's like pride, obsession with himself and with his position, because prejudice does that. It makes us think that. Makes us think that, you know, we might be guilty of all motorcycle riders with long hair aren't in a gang. All people, you know, we think about that. All preachers don't eat chicken. But that's what we get, I mean, you know, that's what preachers do. They eat chicken. All beer drinkers don't look like the model that advertises it on TV. All fat people aren't lazy. all Chinese don't know karate. But this is what people think. They take one thing about somebody and the whole race comes under fire. This man didn't bow down. So now the whole race is guilty. This is the prejudice of it here. And we see here, they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. He told them he was a Jew. Jews don't like that group. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reference, that Haman was full of wrath, and he felt scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews. That word literally means wipe out. To wipe out all of the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom, even the people of Mordecai. So he's going to get them all. This is what he's talking about. There is a prejudice there. But then there's number two, there's a plot to kill the Jews here. In verse 7, in the first month, that is the month of Nisan, that would be about April for us, about that time. In the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur. That is the lot. They cast lots. That's what pur means. There. I'll explain a little bit to you in a more about that. Before Haman, from day to day and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month Adar. So they're trying to, it's like drawing straws in a way to decide which is the best day to determine this time of destruction. So it ends up being like March would be our March before they actually did it, as they decided. So we see here there's a plot. Now, April, Nisan is the first month on the Persian calendar. It's not like ours. And they believed that the gods would come down on that time and fix man's fate. That's what they believe. Not God, but little g gods. That's their superstitions, their beliefs. So they're doing it for a while. They're back and forth drawing these straws and trying to say that. The word pur, P-U-R, means casting lots. They called in soothsayers. Some say witches. And astrologers. And they had these painted stones and carved strips of parchment that they would draw these things with. Kind of like when we throw dice. And that's what they did. They debated about it. They're going to do it, but when's the best time? They want the gods to be on their side, the fates of the gods to work in their favor. So, by the way, this is several years since chapter 2. I didn't mention that to you. It's like 3 or 4 years, maybe even up to 5, between 2 and 3 that this happened here. So keep in mind, in the Bible, it's not always day like this. It can be, especially in the Old Testament, there's more of a time span between each of these things here. They want to find the luckiest day for destruction. And they are trying to do certain people here. He's talking about here, it's no mention of Mordecai or even the Jews here. And he doesn't even mention his purpose to the king in a minute when he meets with the king. He doesn't even mention the real reason why. I'll call anybody's name out. Now, the Jews sometimes didn't observe their own days, and it was, they didn't let some, they were very funny about who married their daughters as well in those days, and they would shut their businesses down if they didn't want to wait on certain kinds of people. So they all had these different kind of things going on in that time. So here we see that they're meeting about this. And Haman said in verse 8 unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad. And he didn't say Jews. He didn't say any names of anybody. And dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people. In other words, I just told you, they did their own laws. If they didn't want to work with you, they wouldn't. They didn't always honor their own days they had. They didn't let just anybody marry their daughters as well. Neither keep they the king's laws. They do their own thing already, is what he's saying. Therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it please the king, let it be written that they might be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business to bring it to the king's treasures. 10,000 talents is equivalent in today's world between somewhere like $30 million, anywhere from $20 to $30 million by today's money. Where did he get that money from? He took it from the people, most likely. So there is a monetary thing offered now. He's fabricating the charge of treason, basically. And there's a monetary motivator involved now. That's a lot of money for any era of time, especially then. Now, why is Satan so hard about destroying the Jews from the beginning? First of all, to destroy the birthplace of Christ, where he would be born, which he didn't succeed to do. He failed at that. But now to destroy the place where Jesus will come back at the second coming and reign in the millennial reign. To destroy that. To put an end to that. But God's going to preserve it all. He always does that. So he's getting permission now, the third point, to destroy the Jews. From the king. Let's get the king involved. So he had a plot. We see that. He had a plot to do this. He had a prejudice against the Jews. But now he's got permission to destroy them. The king didn't ask any questions. Now, you would think that somebody would ask, okay, why are you doing this? What is the reason? Who is the person? I mean, no questions were asked. What he does here in verse 10, the king took his ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to you. No questions asked. No names mentioned. You got my approval to do what you need to do. That's like saying, here's my checkbook. Go write the check and buy what you need to buy. Do what you need to do to make this happen. You wouldn't get very far with mine, but anyway. So here it is. That he's saying now the ring had a special design that was there. He put it in soft wax, had a special design, and it was like a signature, like a legal binding document. If the king did that, it's done. Can't be reversed. He had all he needed. He had the approval to steal. He had the approval the authority to exterminate this group of people. No questions were asked. There was money apparently given there. And there in verse 11, the silver is given to thee. So he has everything that he needed. And now he's set to go and try to do this. He wrote out the proclamation. He's got the king involved in it. A diabolical plot is about to transpire to destroy the Jews. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded, and to the king's lieutenants, and to the governors, they were over every province, to the rulers of every people in every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. In the name of King Ahasuerus was it written, and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all the people, that they should be ready against that day. And they figured it out to be somewhere around what would be March the 13th of our time was when it was going to be, according to the months of that day. But look here in verse 15. But the city, Shushan, was perplexed, as well they should be. He's got it all made out. He's got it all written out. He's got the king's ring, the signature. He's got the money. He's got the approval. He's getting all these governors and all these lieutenants and all this from every province and rulers of every people. He sent out letters and posts into every way. But look at their plan is to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish. Who else does that? The devil himself. To destroy. He'll destroy your happiness. He'll destroy your fellowship. He'll destroy your testimony. He'll destroy your marriage. He'll destroy your children. He'll destroy your church. He'll destroy your health. He can't take your life because God has to allow him to do that. But he'll destroy you. As we see there, that's what he's going to do. He'll kill your witness, though. He'll kill your testimony. He'll kill your spiritual growth. He'll kill your happiness if he can't take your life and cause you to perish just the same. I've been following up people that's been absent this week. It's been a real challenge because I get the same excuse over and over. I won't go into all that, just in case somebody might be listening. But it grieves my heart that people who used to care about God, who used to serve God, had a desire, a burning desire, it's whatever. What's wrong? It's depressing to contact. I do it. I'm supposed to do it, but so are you. But the thing is, it's depressing when you used to see them so on fire for God. In this church today, I'm not talking about another. I'm talking about in this church today, the people I contact, they're not going anywhere. They're just not going. And it breaks my heart because they had so much potential. They were growing so much. I'm not going to tell you who it is, even in private conversation. But they were so on fire for the Lord. And now it's just whatever. Or I know I need to be. Or I should be. But I just can't do it. Why? Because, see, I know it's hard. I've never been out of church long enough to know how hard that is, except for 2 years when I got out of church and when I was 20 and didn't know much better. But you know how I went back? That's what I told them. Because there was a knowing in my heart every Sunday as to why I wasn't in church. I knew I was wrong. I knew, and I just fought against it. And every Sunday the Lord would say, you need to be in church. Why aren't you there? But he didn't give up on me, and he won't them. But for 2 years, I knew I was out of God's will. I was saved, but I wasn't growing. I had no walk with God. One Sunday morning, I said, I'm going back. I just got up. I called my cousin, who was leading music at that time at Southside Baptist Church, and I said, you going to church tomorrow? No, because you'll be leading music. Come by and get me. I want to go with you. And I went. And the only time I've been out of church now is if I'm very, very sick or if I'm out of town. Even before I was preaching. But you see, I told them, God's not going to do that for you. He'll help you, but you've got to get up and just decide to do it. On and on the phone calls go. They're not going anywhere. They just don't go. They just don't. It's just not important anymore. It's like God is somewhere else. They love the Lord, but not enough to make it an important part of their life. You see, that's what I'm saying. He'll destroy your happiness. He'll destroy your joy. He'll destroy your peace, your testimony. It ain't our fault, church.
It's our job to pray, though. It's our fault if we don't pray for these people. But you see here, to destroy the Jews, young and old, the children. If they were Jews, destroy them. And that's the way the devil is. Young, grow. You know, right now, children in this age are being poisoned more than any time they have in their life. It's mind-boggling what you see and hear that children are being put through today, what they're being taught. I'm not saying in these schools here, but in this world, what they're being influenced by, what they get on that phone and get influenced by. The devil is trying to ruin our children in this world to stop anybody from advancing the cause of Christ. That's what he said. The young, the old, the little, the children, the women, destroy them all. See how Satan is still playing the same games for centuries, because the devil's not all-knowing. He's not all-powerful. You know how he works? Through trial and error to see what works for you and then to hit you with that every time. It's trial and error. So we'll end there tonight. That's the last verse anyway. And it's a tragic situation, but it's going to get better as the book goes on. Now, one Wednesday night coming up, I don't know when it is. I'm not going to be here because it's time for me to have my colonoscopy again. And I don't know if it's going to be next Wednesday or the one after that, but coming up very soon. I go Friday to find out. I don't want to miss it, and it's done on Mondays or Thursdays, and I don't want to miss a Sunday, so it'll be a Wednesday. It may be on down the road, depending on the schedule, but I'll let you know. But I do have to have one of those very soon. Don't like it, but I guess things happen that way. So we'll keep that in mind. I have some flyers here with our spring revival. I made these. I got about 25, but I'll make some more. The Lisenby family, it's Dr. Joe and Joy, and he has a doctorate. He's not preaching, but he is very, very good on prophecy, but he's not preaching. They're leading the music. David Hannah is preaching. He's got 5 daughters. There's about 7 or 8 of them. And they're going to come in the bus. It's like he is the brother to the drummer for We Are Called. He's the brother of him. And they travel in a bus. They're from Arkansas, but they go all over everywhere doing retreats, camps, and revivals. They're going to park it out here. I just pray that hookup is the same as the other bus, so we don't have to change nothing. I think it says 59 amp, but that's over my head. Whatever that means, I'm not sure. But anyway, they're going to come and stay here in their bus, and they do more gospel-type music than the other bunch does. So they'll be here on the 23rd. I changed the times this time to 6:30 instead of 7, because school will be back in then, and it's just easier. But if you got kids, because sometimes it runs till almost 8:30, so that'll give us more time at 6:30. So these flyers are here. There's their picture on here. You can see a picture of them. You can go to their website and Google it, and you can see, you hear some of their songs, and they're also on YouTube. So that is what we have planned for that. Instead of doing groups tonight, we're just going to do prayer. I tell you what, we got time. Let's just do the groups. Let's just do that. Some people actually like it. I've had some comments on it that they like it, so we'll do it. We won't do it forever, just during revival, if you would. We'll pray again, and then we'll be done. That's the only thing coming up is that, and Mother's Day and baby dedication will be on Mother's Day. And Chris is doing the honoring the graduates, I think, the first Sunday in May. But pray for the pancakes. 23rd. Of what? That's 2 weeks. Well, that leaves me out. I don't eat pancakes anymore. But let's have a word of a prayer in our groups again, and